We'll try to talk loud enough so we don't need microphones. Again, this is very informal, so if you have questions at any time, please feel free to raise a hand. Should be a dialogue. It's not a lecture, so we want to make it interactive. So if you have questions, thoughts, comments, please feel free to raise your hand, and we'll make this as informal as possible. As Traci mentioned, I work at Ministry Healthcare. I've been involved with Walk Wisconsin with John since the very beginning. I'm a 4-year participant in the community weight race. So for me, I guess I call myself a born-again walker because I have found that walking has made a difference in my health and in what I hope to be doing for many, many years to come. So John, if you could...
Just say beep. You know, say beep.
Oh yeah, beep.
Okay, beep.
Okay. So, you're all here as members of the community weight race. I have my own personal weight challenge that goes back to when I was in high school. I've battled weight my entire life. I came from a household where dessert was a standard, and the third brownie was when my mom said maybe that was enough tonight. It was soda and Kool-Aid in the refrigerator. I think I drank my first glass of water in 1992. So I mean, we really didn't think about nutrition. We really didn't think about healthy eating. I was active as a kid, but I battled weight my entire life. So when I graduated high school, I weighed 185 pounds. I came to college here at UW-Stevens Point, and not only did I find the freshman 15, I found the sophomore 40. So I gained 40 pounds in 2 years because I found beer, and I found Hardee's late at night, and I found pizza, and I found a lot of things again, and I became even less active than I was in high school. So I met a wellness major who I roomed with, and he kind of showed me that I had some things to work on. And as you can see, I took it to the opposite extreme. I starved myself for a semester. I remember eating one meal around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and that was it. I was hungry most of the time, and I lost a lot of weight. Started running, and I mean, at the time, I felt very good about myself. But as you can see, it wasn't sustainable. So after I graduated from college, I found all that weight back, plus some. Then I found religion again for another year, and then I gained even more. So as we see here in the circle, Walk Wisconsin we'll talk about later, but I've now found, I guess, some stability in terms of me keeping weight off and trying to stay in better shape. And it really has been walking that's made all the difference. I'll turn 50 in May, and my joints have had enough of running and the pounding that goes along with that. So for me personally, walking has really been my answer. Not only Walk Wisconsin, but wearing a pedometer, and we'll talk about pedometers as well. So that's kind of my personal weight challenge. We'll also see community weight race in here. I feel good about the fact that I weighed less this year than I did when I started the weight race last year. So my personal goal hasn't been so much about the weight, the total that I've lost. I lost 3 pounds last year during the weight race, but over the course of the year I lost 6 pounds total. So I started 3 pounds lighter this year than I did last year. And my goal is, I guess, to continue to ratchet this down. I'll never be here again. I can guarantee you that. But I would like to be at my fighting weight of 185 pounds. So that's, again, what I want to have walking be my tool in order to get there. So I don't know what your weight story is, but again, mine has been one of a roller coaster, and the stability that I've been able to find the last couple years is directly related to walking.
I was, I guess from the time I left school, I have always had this thing where I stand in front of the mirror, and if I see anything, then I get after it right away. So I think I've probably, mine's the opposite. And some of you who go up and down and everything probably hate people like me. I've probably, if I get 5 pounds over, I put it into some kind of gear and try and get rid of it right away. I was the worst triathlete in Portage County for 25 years. And all of a sudden, the old knees and back just didn't want to run anymore. So I was swimming, biking, and limping, and decided that it was time to, birthdays caught up with me. It was time to do some other things. About that same time, Brant was playing around with the 10,000 step program. I do believe we might have been having an adult beverage one night, and we started talking about the possibility. I also work at the Green Circle, so we started talking about what would happen if we started, a distance walk, even as much as a marathon. We'll talk about that in just a second. But in that whole process, like, well, it's something to do. It's something to challenge me. You know, I need something if I'm not going to race anymore. And I started walking. Because the other thing is, it does take a little bit of time. Walking takes you a little bit longer than running. But of course, you don't sweat as much. And you don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to do a lot of things like that. And I found that walking, if you do it in a religious manner, it does everything that any other exercise can do for you. So why walking? Well, as it turns out, walking is the exercise preferred by more Americans than any other. And so that if you just pick what's your favorite exercise or what's the exercise that you do most often, it's walking. The issue is we don't do it often enough. And that's where the 10,000 steps and some other programs come into play. It just kind of keeps you thinking a little bit about how many miles you might have made in a given day. It's recommended for a number of reasons. The number one thing that I think of when I walk anymore, and I walk with my wife a lot, so we end up chatting. You can go out walking, and you can even walk at a pretty fair clip, but you can still talk. So you can do lots of other things while you're walking. If you're running, if you're on a bike, if you're swimming, you're doing some of the other aerobic kinds of things. You really can't do much else. But walking is nice in that respect, and walking is also quite inexpensive, so we'll talk about it again a little bit later. Walking is recommended for heart disease. I'm one of those. My family did not do me, I got a gene problem, as they say. Some forms of cancer, diabetes, of course, that leads to all kinds of other issues, stress, and the list goes on and on. And I was just trying to write an article for a letter to the editor or something. I was on vacation, and I started looking up different things. What does the Heart Association say? The Heart Association says exercise, eat right, get rid of stress. Okay, let's see, what does cancer say? Exercise, eat right, vegetables, fruits, whole grains, stress. What does diabetes say? You know, it's the same thing you keep hearing over and over again. And somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 60% of all the major illnesses in our life are lifestyle issues that we can do something about. Finally, walking, I think, is nice because I am not a big smartphone guy or anything like that, and I see people just constantly, it looks like everybody's racing today. Luckily, I've been able to retire, so I've been able to slow down, so it's easier maybe for me to say this, but it looks like life is just happening faster and faster and faster, and of course all the new devices that we have available to us speeds us up even more. We know more about what's going on all the time, and we seem like we have to be someplace and we're checking this and we got to get to our Facebook. It just looks awful to me. But when you go for a walk, it just kind of slows you down, and in particular, I like to walk through the woods, and it can be a little spiritual, it can be just time away, time to think, time to regroup, figure out what you're going to do tomorrow. And so those are some of the reasons that I think walking is really neat. A beep, will you get it?
Yep, I got
okay,
it.
okay, you're way.
Sorry.
Burns calories, it strengthens the back muscles, and as we age, that core becomes more and more important to so much. The way we sit and the way we move around, if you ever have back problems, life stops. You know, you're on the couch. It keeps us slim, and we know that you know, especially belly fat. Heart Association is really talking a lot about belly fat now and its relationship to heart problems. It's easy on the joints, and I mean, if you get into a regular nice gait, and we're not talking about speed walking tonight, we're talking about just recreational walking, just a nice pace, maybe 3.5 mile an hour. 3.5 mile an hour is just walking about like that. You know, it's just the way you would normally walk. It strengthens the bones and it lowers the blood pressure. Any exercise is going to do that. It allows time for your family, as we said. It shapes and tones the legs and the butt. We still have that issue going on, don't we? But and it cuts the cholesterol. It increases the good cholesterol, the HDL cholesterol, and it has a tendency to fight off some of the LDL. It reduces stress. Again, we like going someplace where it's a little quiet, where you don't have too much traffic, so you can just kind of chat and let your mind race a little bit. It reduces stress again, and it allows us to get good night's sleep. And research again is talking more and more about the importance of getting a good full night's sleep. It's a year-round activity, although this time of the year is a little tricky. For those of you who are, you're working and you're wondering where can we go, we've been going down to, what is it, the
Industrial Park?
The industrial park, the business park. It's a 2-mile outer loop. It's always cleaned up. There's very little going on down there at night. It's well lit, so we've been going down there and walking some laps down there, outdoors. And it can be done almost anywhere. And it's not free. I mean, you go for a walk, it's not free. You need some shoes, you need some stuff. But you probably already have most of the stuff you need. And somebody just asked me, what do you recommend for a shoe? Well, everybody we talk to says a good walking shoe is a good running shoe. So if you get a good running shoe that has a nice heel strike to it and gets you rolling, then that's a pretty good thing to learn. I want to just mention one other thing that's not on the screen. Regardless of your politics, I think we can all agree that healthcare costs are going up very rapidly, and some way, somehow, within the next number of years, we're going to all come to understand that we all have a responsibility to one another, that we're going to be sharing the cost of healthcare with everyone that we live with. And so in the past, I think we might have talked to people about the importance of taking care of yourself, for yourself and your families. And in the future, I think it's going to be important for us to all think about our relationship to all those around us in our state or our country or wherever this is going to land. Because we collectively, if we all start making some better choices and get into some rhythms, get into a regular program, and we like walking, then we're going to be able to keep the cost down, not only for ourselves, but also for our neighbors. So I think that's going to become more and more of an issue in the next few years as this political discussion goes forward.
And I think, John, you talked a little bit about walking with your wife. We don't have relationship building on here, but I can tell you when you're on a 5 or 6 mile walk, my wife and I have started out fine, had an argument, and then finished it, and then been good by the time I finished the walk.
My wife starts walking faster.
Yeah, so I mean, it can be therapeutic from a relationship standpoint. And again, John and I started walking and started training back in '05, and I would say we've probably been on 150, if not 200 walks. That it has allowed us to share what's going on in our lives. We get caught up on what's going on with our children. The spouses will talk or will mix, and when you're on a group walk, you'll find yourself shifting between the people who are there, and it is a wonderfully social event. And again, we're going to talk about Walk Wisconsin and one of the ripple effects that I personally have found. But again, you can't overestimate the importance of, I think, how to keep relationships strong as well as your body. And again, what we have found is when you can walk, you can talk, and when you talk, you have a chance to continue to build, and I think that's important. So, John mentioned briefly about 10,000 steps, and when I started with ministry, if you go back to that chart, I was about 40 pounds heavier than I am now. And when I started working in healthcare, and I would be in St. Mike's on a day-to-day basis, and I know that people, sometimes it's genes, but a lot of times it was personal choice. And as I would see patients come in and I'd have a chance to interact with folks, I had to look in the mirror and determine I had to make some changes in my life, or I was headed down a dangerous road of diabetes or heart issues. So when our family practice department in 2003 wanted to start a 10,000 step program, I was working in marketing here, in fact, in this building, and I figured if I was going to talk about 10,000 steps and we were going to market it, I needed to know what was involved. So I started wearing a pedometer in 2003, and I'm still using it as a tool today, and we have some other neat tools with technology that have come up, and we'll show those in a second. But 10,000 steps is the amount of steps we need each day to live a healthier lifestyle. The average person's stride is just over 2.5 feet, and it takes about 2,000 steps to walk a mile. So we're talking about 5 miles a day. When I first started wearing a pedometer, I mean, I was tired, I was busy. I thought, I'm getting my exercise. I was averaging 2,800 steps a day when I first started wearing a pedometer, and the pedometer don't lie. So for me, I was able to start a benchmark, and I was able to build from there. So the goal is to reach 10,000 to live a healthier lifestyle. If you want to incorporate a weight loss element, it's between 12 and 15,000 steps a day. So There's a number of ways to increase your daily steps. Again, it's about making walking part of your daily routine and who you are. Tonight, I parked over in the farthest spot in the parking lot. That's something I've been doing for the last 10 years. My kids used to, I don't want to say hate me for it, but every time I would park, and we'd go to Walmart or the grocery store or Shopko, I would always park in the furthest spot. And Dad, why do we have so far to walk? I said, well, you know, it's good to get the exercise. So when they started driving, and they started driving me around, it took a little while, but now they even park further away because they know it makes me happy, and they know they can get in their additional steps. But what happens is you start to hardwire in your life those ways to get more steps, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, parking further away from the entry door. If you're going to head downtown, parking in a lot and walking down the street. Again, reading the pedometer and making sure you're getting the steps you need every night. So the best way to go about doing that is to have a walking log, and if you could take one and pass them back. A walking log is a way to keep tabs on how much you're walking. I think, John, if you want to go to the next slide. So we'll talk about the pedometer first. A pedometer is a tool that you wear on your waist to track your steps. They're at sporting goods stores. McDonald's had them for a while, but I wouldn't recommend the McDonald's pedometer because that lasts all of about 15 minutes. So you want to spend some money on a pedometer. You can get one for $10, you can pay $200, but you don't necessarily need the laser and all the other fun stuff that goes on. In fact, I have a Nano, I have an iPod Nano that has a pedometer on it. So there's all sorts of tools out there. And what is this called again? Fitbit. And now, since I got mine several years ago, this is called a Fitbit. And why don't you explain how it works?
Well, they have these in blue and they have them in pink. Ladies can wear these by their bra, or you can wear them in your underwear. If you press the button, it keeps track of how many miles you walk a day. It tells you how many calories you're burning each minute. It tells you how many stairs you've climbed each day. The more stairs you climb, the more calories you burn. This thing has a flower on it. And the higher your flower grows, you're doing exceptionally well. So one time I went up and down my stairs about 10 times, and I felt like I was ready to pass out, but my flower was soaring high.
You had a bouquet by that time.
I did. But it works wonderfully for me. It tells me exactly, this thing is very accurate. I ordered it online. You put it on your charger, it connects right to your laptop, and you reset it each day, and you wear it each day, and it keeps it going.
So, yes?
You can also use a Fitbit, calories. You can log your sleep on it.
Yep.
You can log your
So you
blood
know all
pressure.
about it.
You can do a food plan.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is there are a lot of neat tools out there to
Yep.
track your activity.
Yeah.
So it could be as simple as a pedometer or a Fitbit and all
Yep.
the whiz-bang
It
and the
allows
bells
you
and
to do
whistles
it
that go
all.
along there.
Yep.
They send you a weekly report on what you did.
Okay.
So
And you
You
see
don't
your
need
chart
it.
too, like
Yeah.
your weight
That's
chart, it
good.
shows you your ups and your downs.
So the bottom line is some tool to measure what we're doing is important. And there's a whole continuum of what is out there in terms of what you're interested in buying. So if you want to go as simple, yes?
How much are they?
The Fitbit?
$99.
$100.
$100?
Say $100.
But-
Best Buy has a
Yeah.
tool.
So pedometer, $10.
Yeah.
It's-
Yes.
So again, it runs the gamut. I wouldn't recommend the 99-cent pedometer or the one you get in the box of cereal. They just don't work very long.
They give you extra steps.
Yeah, you get extra steps. So what I've handed out is the log, and the idea behind the log is if it's not electronically the whiz-bang of keeping track or sending you to a website that tracks it for you.
Right.
This is old school, and again, I don't have a smartphone either. Maybe that's why John and I get along so well. The idea is you wear a pedometer and you just go through your normal routine. And you'll see months and dates on there, and you log or you write down how many steps you end up with when it's time for bed. So it may be 3,218 steps. So day one, you write that down. You wear the pedometer the next day after you get up, get showered, get ready for work. You write that number down. You do that for 2 weeks. And then you figure out the average. So there is some math involved. So you may have to get out a pencil and do some long division. So there's an average. So say after 2 weeks, your average is 4,300 steps. You want to add 500 steps a week and build toward the 10,000. The idea is not to jump right into 12,000 steps the first day, or you're going to pull muscles, you're going to tear some stuff, you're going to get discouraged, and you're going to find a reason not to do it. So, first 2 weeks, you monitor and set your benchmark. And John, you can go to the next slide, please. And then after 2 weeks, you set your where your benchmark is, and then you build toward 10,000. So it may take 2 months to get to 10,000 steps. It may take 3 months to get to 12 or 15,000. When I wear a pedometer and I do it for weight loss, I'm averaging about a half a pound a week, maybe 3/4 of a pound, which again I found to be a healthy amount, and it's something that I've been able to maintain. So again, the step log I have found is crucial, and this I've made copies of it. I mean, this goes back to 2003 since I've been using a log, and I just made copies of it, and I use it time and time again. And again, when it gets hardwired, the pedometer will be enough, because once you're at 8,000 steps, you need another 5,000. And for me, it's the things like parking further away, or the walks that I do at night, or the walks I do in the morning that helps get that gets me there. But it's a day-by-day goal, and again, the pedometer, the Fitbit, whatever you happen to do, in your mind you can think I'm active, but these don't let you cut any corners. So you may say, well, I like to ride a bike, or I like to swim, or I have an elliptical at home, or I vacuum, or I like dance class, or whatever. The great thing about the 10,000 step program is that you can convert all your activity into steps. And this is another handout that you look for the type of activity, and on the handout you'll see that for every minute of that activity equates to so many steps. So if you vacuum at home and you do that for a half an hour, you multiply 30 times the number of steps that equals, and you add that to your daily total. So not only, because there are some things the pedometer won't be able to track. I can tell you that if you're riding a bike, it's going to be difficult. If you're in the, if you're, again, doing aerobics, or you're swimming, for certain you don't want to wear it in the pool, because that will be the first and last time you get to use that particular piece of equipment. So again, the conversion chart allows you to get credit for all of your activity as you generate that number at the end of each day. So no matter what else you like to do from an activity standpoint, you get credit in, I guess, translated into steps. And then you use the log, you monitor, and you shoot for that goal of 10,000 steps a day. Again, weight loss, 12 to 15,000. I wore my pedometer, the first marathon I walked, I wore my pedometer. Between the walk itself and all the work that we did as a committee running around and getting things ready, I had 62,000 steps at the end of the day. So it's kind of fun. And I've been part of a program at Roosevelt School for the last 5 years, where they're involving 3rd and 4th graders in wearing pedometers, and Ministry Healthcare has been a sponsor, as well as Active Portage County and Walk Wisconsin. And the kids are walking around the world, so they're using a log to track their steps every day. And cumulatively, the class is trying to figure out how many times they can walk around the world. So they've done the math in determining that over the course of the year, how many times can they walk around the planet Earth. And I think the group last year, it was 7.5 times they walked around the Earth.
Wow.
And then they celebrated at the end of the year. But it's instilling those good habits in 3rd and 4th graders who are at some point in time in their lives going to be young adults and older adults, and we want to make sure that they're making good
Some of you
decisions.
may really be surprised, depending on what you do. If you're in office work, then you're not getting a lot of steps. But my wife was a public school elementary teacher. She routinely was getting 7,000 to 8,000 steps a day in the classroom, moving around. So then, we really didn't have to add an awful lot in the evening if she had a busy day like that. So depending on what you do, that'll give you a tip on how many minutes you might want to lay aside in the evening to get your exercise, or in the morning if you'd like that better.
And that's really what it came down to. It was rounding out to get to that goal so I could make sure that I was logging the amount of steps, and it kept me in check. And so again, for me, it's been a 10-year tool in terms of not having a Fitbit, but being able to, I know even there's some apps now where you can do a lot of stuff. So if you have an app that does a lot of stuff, God bless. But again, it's a paper tracking form that hopefully will be beneficial. So any questions about 10,000 steps, the log, The conversion, again, it involves some math, but I think it's not complex math. Okay.
Well, Walk Wisconsin is another element we think. Again, the concern was people like walking, or that's their preferred exercise, but they weren't walking enough. So I'd like people to think of Walk Wisconsin not as an event, but rather as a celebration of the fact that they've prepared to the degree that they can do the event, or they can do their challenge, whatever they select, and do it painlessly and really have a fun day. We always go out on National Trail Day. We use 85% of the event uses the green circle, so it's a nice soft crushed granite track. We've been doing a marathon. I guess just quickly, there was a fellow who came to town 10 years ago, and he was an expert on walking. And there were 400 people at Century. We'd been talking about a marathon around the green circle, and he said people won't do a marathon. So, oh, okay, kind of dashed our dreams. But that night we kept talking to him, and he said, "Well, stand up if you'd be willing to walk a quarter, 6 miles." And just a lot of people stood up, and then he said, "Well, stay standing if you would be willing to do 13, half of a marathon." Well, a lot of people stayed up. So then he said, "Well, how many would be willing to actually walk an entire marathon?" He thought everybody was going to sit down, and about 2/3 of the people there stayed up, and that's what triggered. Let's go ahead and give it a go. And 9 years ago, we did the first Walk Wisconsin, and over 1,000 people came out that day and walked with us. And then our goal after that was like, we want to walk collectively. We want to walk 25,000 miles today. You know, when we add up all of our numbers, and we did that the next year. We've been up in the neighborhood of a couple thousand people the last few years, and it spreads itself out nicely, so you can have a great experience out, mostly walking through the woods and through some of the really pretty places in Portage County. And again, it is, if people don't prepare, they don't have much fun. If they are prepared, then they come out and they walk with different people. You find somebody that's walking your pace, or you go with a friend. Sometimes you see other people and you start walking with them for a while, and it's amazing. And there's places to stop every 3.5 miles. There's a little nutrition. There's nature stops. Everything you need so that you don't have to carry much with you to do a marathon. And it's just recreational pace. We set it up so the rest stops are open from people who walk 2.6 mile an hour, which is really strolling, to people who walk more quickly. I think 4.25 miles per hour or something like that, which is brisk. And so the stops are open, and people can walk their own pace with whoever they want to. And we take people out. The start and finish is together at the van shell. And then we take people out to the 1/4 and the 1/2 and the 3/4, which is a new element this year. We're going to offer 3/4 because people have been asking for it. And then everybody ends up finishing back at the same place where we have a little celebration, more food. I think people have gained several pounds. That's not a good. This is not a good group to tell this to. People have gained weight on Walk Wisconsin because we have a lot of goodies. We want it to be fun. We want it to be a celebration of all the miles that people have made preparing for it. And then I don't know, we didn't talk about it, but we also do moonwalk. People say, well, we did the Walk Wisconsin Marathon, and then we kind of quit walking because we did that. And I said, well, no, you don't want to quit. You know, this is a lifestyle. We want to continue to keep moving all the time. So then we put in up to a 4, 8, or 12 mile walk, full moon in October, called Moonwalk. We also walk the trail on that, the Tomorrow River Trail.
And we've seen people progress from starting maybe with the 1/4, and then a year or two later they decide they want to try the 1/2, and then they kind of get stuck because they don't want to jump to the full marathon. So we're hoping that the 3/4 will help alleviate some of that. And I can tell you, John walks the full marathon the week before the actual event to make sure that the trail is all set, and then he works hard the day of, making sure that logistics are taken care of. When we formed the committee 10 years ago, I decided that I wanted to walk in it. So I have walked every Walk Wisconsin, the full marathon. And I have 4 other marathons, and John has walked a couple as well. I've been out to Boston and walked the Boston Marathon. I've been to Vegas and walked there in a marathon. And what's real exciting for us is one of our original committee members was the editor of the Stevens Point Journal 11 years ago. She took a job in Indiana the second year that we were doing Walk Wisconsin. And it took maybe 5 years, but she built some energy, and they started Walk Indiana 3 years ago. So now in Muncie, Indiana, they do a walk marathon on their trail system. Almost a carbon copy of what we do here in Stevens Point.
It's 48 states to go.
So we have 48 states to go. So again, the idea is that the event is a celebration, but you should be walking in July, and walking in September, and walking in February, and walking in April. And in a minute or two, we're going to go over some of the training regimens depending upon where you are on your walking continuum, if you're a regular walker or if you've never walked before. So one of the other things we like to, we have a lot of great sponsors in the community, as the weight race does. We'd like to keep the price low. So for $25, you get all the rest stops John talked about. You get the t-shirt. We have some backpacks here that we'll give everyone before you leave tonight. You get the medallion, comfort stops, hospitality, which is really priceless. But again, Central Wisconsin does a great job of welcoming the folks who come and visit our area. In Portage County, over the last couple years, has steadily climbed the ranks in terms of most active counties in the state. We were 27th just a few years ago, and now we're hovering in the top 3 to top 5. We know that Walk Wisconsin isn't the sole reason for that, but we also take a lot of pride in the fact that at least we're getting activity to the forefront and on the minds of folks. And I know that I walk a lot on the Green Circle, and granted, this kind of stinks regarding the snow and the remnants of March, but as soon as we get that first 50-degree day, I know you all see it too. People are out and they're active, riding bikes and rollerblading and walking. And we hope that events like Walk Wisconsin have created a mindset that you can be more active. So again, it's a celebration, but it really is the end of, or the means to an end is walking in the lifestyle change. So the question is, could you be a marathon walker? And this was the Society for the Prevention of Using the Word Just before the word walking. When we first started this, people said, well, it's just a walk. What do you have to train for? Well, I can tell you that having walked a dozen marathons, people who show up the morning of without doing any training in their Mary Janes or in their flip-flops, they get to about mile 4 and they realize that it's not just a walk. One would argue that it takes as much, if not more, training than it does to run, because you're on your feet a lot longer than you are when you're running a marathon.
Yeah, my friend, he's run 5 or 6 marathons. He walked it, I think, the second year, and he said it's actually, it's harder in that you're out there for so long. You know, it's just like you kind of hit the wall at 20 miles, just like in a running marathon. You just, I want it to be over. And when you're running a marathon, you have a little over an hour to go. You're walking it, you have probably 2 hours yet to go. It's tough walking a full marathon, but that's the challenge. If people want to do that, then they have to prepare to spend a little more time getting ready.
My average marathon time is about 7.5 hours. When we were in Vegas, we didn't realize that they had a clock on us, and it was a running event. And that's one thing that I've noticed is running events don't really cater to walkers, but we decided to do it anyway. And we walked, they closed the strip in Vegas, if you can imagine, on a Sunday morning. We took off down the strip, and there's the Rio, and there's the, whatever, wherever you gamble, like every 10 feet, the next one. Oh yeah,
every step.
So we're walking and we're visiting and we're having a grand old time, and all of a sudden there was 2 tracks. One said half marathon this way and full marathon this way. So we took off on the full marathon route, and all of a sudden we were completely by ourselves. There were 5 of us. We got to this checkpoint, and the guy said, you had 3 minutes or we were going to have to kick you off, because it was designed for runners who were already through. So we ended up, when we were at the 18-mile mark, and it was an out and back at that point. So as we were walking out, a lot of the runners are coming back. Well, they thought we had broken down. They thought we were running and couldn't run anymore. So they're all, way to go, guys! Hang in there, it'll be okay. And we're like, what are they talking about? So all of a sudden then the flashing lights came behind us, and it was a squad car. And he said, folks, we're gonna have to kick you off. We're opening the streets back up. I said, well, we came all the way to Vegas to finish the marathon. Can we walk on the sidewalk? He goes, yeah, go ahead. So we walked on the sidewalk. And the funny part of it was, by the time we got to the end, about mile 24, we started passing the runners because they were breaking down and we were walking and we had trained for it. So again, there's a lot of great experiences out there in terms of walking opportunities. and Wisconsin with our trail system. And you know, there's committees meeting about pedestrian access. And again, it seems to be taking hold in terms of people looking for opportunities to walk. So, marathon training, again, as we mentioned, walking takes time. Training takes time. We're going to go over that in a minute. And I brought some handouts that you can take with you that are copies of the slides, depending upon what you're interested in. If it's the quarter, the half, the 3/4, or the full, we have a training schedule there. Different marathons, different challenges. If you're walking the Green Circle, crushed granite, great on the body. If you're walking the Boston Marathon, it's hills and it's more hills and it's all asphalt. So again, training is different for each of them. The right equipment, having the shoes, the socks, the clothing, water, nutrition. Running shoes, as John mentioned, I've been to Shippy, I've been to Happy Feet. I've seen people make the mistake of thinking that they can kind of go on their own initially if they are just starting to get into distance walking. I wear running shoes, and I wear them at least a size bigger than I normally wear because my feet swell, and you want to be prepared for that as you are long distance walking. Socks, I buy only wicking socks that I wear when I walk. I wear 2 pair, and I change them regularly when I'm on a distance walk. The clothing, making sure that you have wicking clothes on, and making sure you're taking in plenty of fluids and plenty of food.
And the shoes, a lot of women here, it's like, why? I'm not going to get a size 9. I've worn 7.5 my whole life. Get a 9. As we age, our arches kind of fall and our feet elongate, and you need a lot. You need a lot of room in that toe box. So don't worry about the size. Worry about the comfort. And when they tell you you need a little bit bigger size than you want to wear, get it, and you'll really appreciate that.
So for our particular event, there are 4 different training schedules, and the marathon training schedule is a 16-week program. So we're already underway, and again, I'm walking my 12th marathon this year. I won't necessarily follow this to the T, but the bottom line is, several days during the week, you have to get your foundation miles in, and then on a weekend, you have to start building toward your distance. For any event that you walk that's a distance event, you don't have to walk the entire distance to consider your training complete. It's about 75 to 80%. So if you're going to walk 26.2 miles, the longest individual training walk is a 20-mile walk, and you do that once. Now, I can tell you that the time element is there because you start at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning, you build in some rest stops, you build in some lunch, you walk 20 miles, it's 4:30, 5 o'clock before you get back home.
That's why it's so important to make it a social kind of thing. It's what you're going to do with a couple of friends that day. Now, we have all these training things. If you go online, you'll find something down to, now you have to do this for the next 30 seconds, and it's like, it just looks insane to me. If you're obsessive compulsives and you like that kind of thing, and I got to do this today before I go to bed because the chart said that, then that's fine. I just, in my mind, I always figure if I can walk 2/3 of the distance I want to go comfortably, then on any given, on the day when the adrenaline's flowing a little bit more, you can go ahead and do the whole thing. So, as you can tell, I don't get too excited about technology and all the numbers and things like that. But some people really do. So whatever works. But the main thing is, if you're going to do a half marathon, then I would say you need to comfortably be able to walk 8 or 9, and then that day you should be able to do 13.
The bottom line is every minute you invest in advance pays dividends. Because if you don't train and you try to get out there, we've seen a lot of people who break down, and we see a lot of people who underestimate what it takes to walk that distance. And again, it's not about the event. It's a great accomplishment that day, but it's about all the time and the, I guess, good habits that we're building as we get there. So if you walk now, I think you can still walk a marathon on June 1st. If you don't walk at all, it may be something you may want to decide that the half is your route and you build toward it. So again, it's not impossible, and as John mentioned, to follow this to the T is not really the goal, but the idea is you have to rest, you have to have some long days in, and you have to have a steady diet of those regular 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 mile days.
If you're just starting, the quarter marathon is still a challenge. It still feels good, still a reward when you get done. You'd need to be able to most likely go out if you walk 3.5, 4 miles an hour, you need to find some hours where you go out and walk that 3, 4 miles And then if you can do that on a regular basis comfortably, then you'd be ready to do the quarter marathon and join us that day.
So the same principle with the 3/4 marathon. It's about a 14-week training regimen. Again, miles during the week, longer walks on the weekends, building up toward the event in June. Same principle with the half marathon. That's about that's a 12-week program, and as John mentioned, the longest walk there is 9 or 10 miles. So again, getting a couple miles in each day, making sure you get your rest. If I recommend if you're going to get a blister, get it in week 4 of training rather than the day of, because I have seen people who have again underestimated what it took, and blisters are not your friend the day of the walk, no matter how thick your socks are.
They always say with skiing, boots binding skis, and walking I would say shoes, socks, and chafing, and then don't worry, it's not a fashion thing. So that would be the order if I wanted. First I want a good pair of shoes, then I want a good pair of socks. Maybe 2 pair of socks depending on the day.
And again, the half marathon involves, I don't want to say a little bit of training, but if that's something that you're interested in the quarter, it would involve just making sure that you can do a couple of miles and get to that 3 or 4 mile range for your longer days. So again, there's a menu here for everyone. I have copies of these slides here. If one particular marathon event interests you, when we're done, you feel free to grab those and take those with you. The bottom line is you invest the time in advance, and it pays benefits that day, and it makes it an enjoyable event. I mean, when you're breaking down at mile 20, it's not enjoyable. And again, we've seen it all. We've had some rain, we've had some heat. The day of, it's a rain or shine event. So again, you want to train in those elements so you are ready for them that day.
We did have a lady take off last year in flip-flops. Said, what are you doing? She said, I'm going to do the marathon. And so we right away started gambling, those of us working the event. We started gambling. What mile will we pick her up? She did not make the first rest stop. And I bet between her toes were plenty sore. So it just, you can't be silly. It's when people say it's just walking, it's a marathon is just walking 55,000 steps. I figured it out last year. If you weigh 160 pounds and you come down on your how many tons you actually come down on those heels, and it was an amazing number.
So leading up to the event, after you register, and we have a flyer that has information on it, you'll be getting a lot of information about training, about equipment, last minute tips leading up to the event. One of the things we continue to hammer home is that your fingers will swell, and every year we have folks who leave their rings on, and we call them sausage fingers, which is a legitimate condition, especially when you walk long distances.
Hands are down all the time.
So the first couple years, we literally watched EMTs cut rings off of people because the ring your finger swells up around the ring and you can't get it off. So again, we talk about those kinds of things. When I was walking in Boston, these were some casual walkers. It was a fundraiser, so people had raised a lot of money, but they really weren't thinking in terms of distance walking. And we were at mile 4, and there was a group there, and it was 4 women, and they were prancing along, and they looked, they had done their hair that day, and they had fit the bill. And I looked, and she must have had $40,000 worth of rings on her hand. So we got to the first rest stop, and I said, ma'am, I hate to be forward. I said, but I'm going to tell you, I said, this is my 7th marathon. I said, those rings are all going to have to be cut off if you don't take them off right now. She goes, well, what do you mean? I said, you're going to get to mile 8, and your fingers are going to be twice their size, and those rings are going to be toast. She goes, oh, okay. So we got to the halfway point at the 13-mile mark, and we were having a sandwich and something to drink. She found me. There was 8,000 people in this field, and she goes, I can't thank you enough. She goes, I walked another mile, and I tried to get them off, and she goes, I could hardly pull them off at that time. So again, we've learned over time that things happen to the body, and we want to make sure that people have a great experience.
Everybody gets one of these, and one of the tricks is, and I think you taught me this, you might see people walking around like this. It looks kind of silly, but they're just trying to get blood flow out of their thing. Or you might just kind of walk like this when you're walking for a while. And you get rid of your sausage fingers until they come back.
So for us, Walk Wisconsin is it's kind of become our passion. It's something that has changed my life. I know it's changed John's life. It's impacted our friendship and the friendship that we have with other walkers very positively. And it's really made a difference in the lives of people who have participated. And I received this testimonial last month. And this was a woman from Swamico whose glucose was at 117. She was dealing with some issues of prediabetes. She Googled walking and found our website. And she walked for the first time the quarter in 2010 with her husband. And she kind of got bitten by the walking bug. And she's pleased to report that she's now since done other runs. Her glucose is under control. She now feels more like she's a 20-year-old rather than a 90-year-old, and gives credit to Walk Wisconsin and the spirit about creating a healthier lifestyle to that event. So she's coming back this year, and we look forward to having a chance to meet her in person. But those are the kinds of stories that we hear, that it is making a difference. And the event is a celebration, but it's a lifestyle that people have made part of their daily.
One quick commercial. Walk Wisconsin kind of led us to form a nonprofit organization called Active Portage County. And what we're really trying to do is become the healthiest county in Wisconsin so that we can make fun of the other 71, and hopefully then that'll get them competing with us maybe in Wisconsin to become a little healthier. But what we have is a website, and I think it's about a week or two away. It looks very nice, activeportagecounty.com. And you'll go there. It's not just walking, but you can hit walking, and it'll tell you the walking events. If you're a runner, you can hit that. And any of the running events that we know of in Portage County. If you're a cyclist, any cycling tours that we know of in Portage County. We're helping sponsor some, and we're helping promote others. So whatever aerobic kind of thing that you are into, we want to try and support that. We're trying to find people who want to develop some paddling events that would get us paddling, and maybe some swimming events or cross-country ski events, or a lot of other kind of activities. The key is whatever you like, that's what you're going to do on a regular basis. So you need to find that activity that becomes a passion for you.
The other thing we found about walking is it's not about deprivation, it's about moderation. So one of our favorite walks is along River Road on the other side of, is that River Road?
West River Drive.
West River Drive. We start by Sherrill on the west side, and we walk to Rusty's.
It's supposed to be fun.
So, I mean, maybe it's a Bloody Mary, and maybe it's a cheeseburger.
There's bean
and there's bean burgers. But again, we have found to be wonderfully socially, for us, it's a great way to get together with friends, and we hope to be doing this for a lot of years. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions, thoughts, other things. Yes?
What kind of socks are you recommending for people to buy for training, for walking?
I like buying what they're called wicking socks. You can get them at Kohl's. You get them at Rogan's. A lot of the sporting goods stores, they'll actually say wicking on them. And it helps pull the moisture from your feet, and it wicks the moisture out. I also buy a wicking shirt. So when you sweat, it wicks the moisture away from your skin. So anytime you see the word wicking, it's something that I have found to be beneficial, especially for longer distances. Yeah. I mean, if you have a 7-year-old pair of socks and you decide to wear those and walk 12 miles, you'll notice a big difference if you have a new or newer pair of socks.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you mean by chafing?
Chafing?
You take that.
There's parts of the legs that tend to rub together. And I can tell you a personal story. When you walk a full marathon at the halfway point when you've chafed, don't use Gold Bond medicated cream. I can tell you that hurts. That was a lesson I learned in year 2.
Oh my God.
Don't use Gold Bonded medicated cream when your legs have been chafed. That was the quickest half marathon I've ever walked. Jets. So again, those are the lessons you learn as you go along. But yeah, things chafe when they tend to. So you may need some. I Vaseline my feet religiously. We use the white kind of Vaseline cream. I Vaseline between my toes. I Vaseline my heels, and I'll do that about every 13 miles. So I found that it helps prevent the friction that can cause blisters.
I have a little vest that I wear that I don't like to carry a lot of stuff. We have one of these, and everybody gets one because we don't want to litter the trail. So there's, everybody gets a water bottle and one of these, and we have a lot of them here if you want to grab one tonight, and if you think that would be helpful. I always in my little vest, I have some Band-Aids, I have just a little tube of Vaseline, maybe sunscreen, the little things that you can get at the store, just, they're very light. So that when I go out, then I might be in a t-shirt or a sweatshirt, but I just grab the vest and put it on, I have everything I need. I grab a little bottle of water and go.
I always carry some ibuprofen. Because at mile 18, you may get a little muscle cramp, and I found that an ibuprofen every once in a while helps.
Or mile 2 if you're just starting.
Yeah. Yes.
I know Walk Wisconsin is obviously a walking event, but if you decided that you wanted to just jog a stick to it, would that be frowned upon?
I mean, would you be pushed into the river,
Yes,
never be
right.
seen again?
To just speed it up a little bit in the middle?
Well, the rest stops are based on slower walkers to
Sure.
faster walkers. If you are falling behind or something, you want to jog for a little, I don't think anybody minds, as long as you understand that it is.
I don't know that my patience is going to handle
And that's
patience.
patience is a virtue when it comes to distance walking. And even Walk Wisconsin, there are people who walk at different paces. So me, I like to have at it. So the first 6 miles are usually the biggest challenge because you are trying to find your way through what is a 4-foot or 5-foot trail with some people who like to walk 3 wide as they're visiting. So it's a little bit of a challenge. First year we had 20 people who decided to run it and they took off. They were upset because there wasn't water and brownies and food for them. So we had to.
You didn't tell them about the brownies. You did.
That's right. We have brownies. We have brownies.
It's supposed to be.
So again, you can't start at the beginning and expect that. But if my cousins came not prepared. They had blisters so bad they had to run the last mile just because they were in such discomfort. So again, strollers, running, dogs. This is not a walk your dog event, and it's not a not walk your 18-month-old 14-mile event. So we ask strollers to stay home. We ask the doggies to stay home.
It does spread out, and we there's kind of some general starting times, so it does get a little crowded at that point, but it does spread out. At 26 miles, people spread themselves out pretty well. So 2,000 people can do this, and you still feel like you're walking in nature.
We don't have running Gestapo that are out on the road.
We do have medical. We have first responders, and we have medical teams. We have lots of people who volunteer to do food and lots of bathrooms and everything that one would need to have an enjoyable day distance walking.